Kicking off the list at number 10, Storm. Aurora Monroe made her debut in Giant Size X-Men issue 1. She was recruited by Charles and joined the team to save other original students from Krakoa. She was appointed leader after several years of hard work. Storm has been called a witch before because her powers to control the air and the elements. I mean, fair enough, right? Things go up a notch in X-Men issue 135 during the Dark Phoenix saga. Sebastian Shaw calls her a weather witch, the old WW. Now, it's not just storms and earth that Aurora can control. Even in space, she can summon natural energy. And when it comes to handling weapons, Storm is also quite experienced with firearms. She's great at handling knives. She can handle the bow staff and was trained by Wakanda's finest in sword fighting. Not too shabby.
Number 9, Luke Cage. Luke Cage is definitely one of the toughest guys around in comics. His skin is near unbreakable, which can be powerful, but also kind of a weakness at times if for some reason he needs a life-saving operation. Aside from his invulnerability, he also possesses super strength and durability. He's been able to hold back an airplane from taking off, and even been able to dole out enough force to weaken and eliminate Invisible Woman's force fields. While we also don't talk about it as often, he's also got pretty quick reflexes, and can move fast when needed. He's caught a bullet before, which of course exploded against his skin.
Number 8, Isaiah Bradley. Played by Carl Lumbly in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Isaiah Bradley makes his comic debut in Truth, Red, White, and Black issue 1. After the US Army lost the secrets of the super soldier serum with Dr. Erskine, they still wanted to create more super soldiers. So Colonel Walker Price and Dr. Wilfred Nagel took 300 soldiers, including Isaiah, by force and used them as subjects. It was awful. They had sent the soldiers' family members invalid letters stating that they were no longer alive. It was horrible. Only a handful ended up surviving this process, and they went on to be this covert Black Ops team. Now, after a few missions, Isaiah was the last soldier left. Issue 5 opens up with Isaiah suited up in the Stars and Stripes. The new Captain America was born using a triangular shield that he decorated with the Double V campaign Eagle Crest. The German soldiers thought that the Americans were bombing them because they didn't see any planes, but really it was Isaiah Bradley, just a one-man army. He was laying TNT down all over, but it wasn't easy for him. It wasn't like this action cinematic thing. He was crying while he was doing this the entire time. He felt awful for what he had to do. He thought of his love, Faith, and their daughter, Sarah. He tried to save everybody held at the camp, and he was said to not have survived afterwards. In the 6th issue of Truth, Red, White, and Black, it cuts back and forth between present-day Steve Rogers interrogating Merritt on the past and what happened, and that's when he found out about the secret history of the Black Captain America for the first time.
Number 7, Black Panther. Black Panther vs. 616 has become one of the most iconic heroes out there since he joined the MCU, and was played by the late and great Chadwick Boseman. May he rest in power. Wakanda forever, Chadwick. Black Panther is currently a member of the Avengers and funds the superhero team. He comes with many different powers, skills, and resources. He has all of Wakanda's wealth and resources at his disposal as their ruler, can call in diplomatic favors if needed, and has been granted superpowers through the heart-shaped herb, which he uses to help others and protect the planet Earth as one of their mightiest heroes. Black Panther also works amazingly hard to run the nation of Wakanda and to lead the Avengers, as we saw when we got a glimpse into his morning routine and daily schedule in Avengers issue 45 from the current 2018 run. I'm telling you, his morning routine puts mine to shame, and I feel like I work hard. I do not, compared to Black Panther.
Number 6, Ultimate Nick Fury. When he entered the Ultimates and Marvel Team Up issue 5, Nick Fury would soon take over as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. And his first plan was to bring back the Super Soldier program, which actually resulted in the creation of said Ultimates. Now, his origins are pretty intense before all this stuff too. He fought for the United States in World War II and was used as a test subject for Project Rebirth. So when he was injected with his new serum, it gave him super strength, and in turn he freed himself and other prisoners and got the hell out of Dodge. Now he's got quite the power behind those punches. He's disease resistant and he has enhanced senses. The whole super soldier package, basically. Now, Samuel L. Jackson not only brought this character to life in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but when creator Mark Millar began writing the Ultimates back in the early 2000s, Samuel L. Jackson was one of his favorite actors, as he should be, so he made Ultimate Nick Fury resemble him. Jackson himself was a comic book fan, so when he saw this, he asked his agents, begged them really, to make this role a reality on the big screen. Now, cut to 11 movies later, it's safe to say say this is our Nick Fury.
Number 5, Nubia. Nubia is the sister of Diana, who had a complex past in terms of her comic book history. In the Prime Earth continuity, she was an Amazonian who spent a long time in captivity, being held by a man who was very unkind to her and brutally mistreated Nubia. And that's putting it lightly because YouTube. Eventually, Nubia came to Themyscira and enjoyed her life there, living free. She would go on in the main continuity to become the new queen after Hippolyta sought out a new Wonder Woman, a warrior who was the most brave of all of her warriors. Her challenge to those who wished to qualify was to look in a bin where the head of Medusa the Gorgon was. Nubia was the only one brave enough to actually look, but instead, when she did, she found a crown. Hippolyta planned to go out into the world of man, and instead of becoming Wonder Woman, Nubia became the new queen instead. Wow, I love it. Like all Amazons, Nubia receives powers of strength, wisdom, and immortality, just from her heritage. Nubia is also known for being a very gifted and skilled warrior and combatant with an indomitable will.
Number 4, Falcon. Superheroes usually don't have an easy childhood. Either they're bullied off the bat, or they're born with advanced abilities that make them an outcast, or something traumatic happens with their parents. But in the case of Sam Wilson, he grew up in a tough neighborhood in Harlem. His father Paul was a minister and tragically met his fate one night after trying to stop a fight between two gangs. Sam was only 9 years old when this happened, and soon after, his mother Darlene was attacked by a mugger and sadly didn't make it. She passed away protecting her children. Cut 2 years later, as an adult, Sam has now taken over the mantle of Captain America in Volume 7, Issue 25, back in 2014, and recently in Marvel Studios' Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he did the same. But before he got the shield from Cap, Sam watched the skies as Falcon, even having a trusty little sidekick of his own, Red Wing. In Captain America Issue 170, Sam received a harness that allowed him to fly from Black Panther. I'm so excited to see more of Anthony Mackie as Captain America. He absolutely killed it in the show. If you haven't watched it, just honestly like this video and then turn it off and then go watch it. But definitely like it first.
And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it, which honestly, I want to do more lists like this for you, so please do this. Make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe, comment. Really, it does let us know you love this and you want more stuff like this. And I have a lot of black superheroes I want to talk about. I don't know about you, Taylor, but I got a lot. Yeah, Taylor also has a lot, so yeah. Number 3, Green Lantern. Green Lantern Joe Maline is definitely one of my favorite new superheroes, and possibly one of my favorite superheroes now of all time, depending on how it all ends up going, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna go great. With Far Sector, she stole my heart though, for sure. Lantern Maline is introduced to us as being the Green Lantern of a far out sector. So far out in fact that she isn't even sure it has a number, hence why we just refer to it as the Far Sector. So if you're wondering what number it is, the Far Sector. Joe's ring is special in the fact that it doesn't need a battery to operate, it can self-charge, but the only problem is that it takes time to recover its battery stores. While initially this is considered to be a weaker kind of ring among the Green Lantern Corps, it also promises to be one that when mastered could be considered one of the most powerful Green Lantern rings ever. In other words, it's just challenging to use, but once you figure it out, you're looking at insane power levels. It's like when you play Smash Bros or League of Legends and you choose a really complicated character to play. So far, we've seen Joe manage to pull off some pretty impressive feats with her ring, and even go to places that as a human she shouldn't be able to traverse, like the City Network.
Number 2, Spawn. Coming from Image Comics, created by Todd McFarlane back in the early 90s, Spawn, aka Albert Francis Simmons, was born in Detroit, Michigan. He was one of 3 brothers, and by the time he was an adult, Albert reached the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Joining the United States Secret Service, Simmons was later recruited by director Jason Wynn into this top secret covert ops division called the US Security Group. So he was already killing it before the Spawn Devil stuff, but let's talk about that stuff now. Simmons and said director were getting off on the wrong foot, and Simmons was about to resign until he was seemingly killed during a mission in Botswana. Director Wynn actually sent the order. Classic. So Simmons ended up being sent to hell because all the assassin stabby stuff. He ended up making a deal with the devil in order to get out, to become a hellspawn in order to see his wife Wanda one more time. He can alter his destiny at will. He can teleport, control nature, and can sense misery in others, including you, Paramore. I was 3 when the Spawn movie came out, and I'm not gonna lie, it scared the out of me more than anything. I was way too young to figure out what was going on. I just saw fire and like an angry mask, and I was like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna have nightmares for weeks. But now I'd love a Spawn movie. Let's bring Spawn back, like ASAP. Let's get a Spawn show.
Number 1. Blue Marvel. Someone who does not get enough love but definitely deserves it is Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel is immensely powerful and got his powers from an accident that happened during the testing of a reactor that could have helped to supply unlimited clean energy to planet Earth. Bashir was one of the scientists who had been working towards this astounding discovery and invented and ended up caught in the crossfire when the reactor unexpectedly exploded. Due to exposure, he was given amazing antimatter based powers that basically turned him into a Superman level superpowered being. Blue Marvel can emit energy blasts, can fly, is basically invulnerable, possesses cosmic awareness, and can manipulate matter at a molecular level. Oh, and he also just happens to be a genius. Number 10. Blackheath. Blackheath is Samuel Smithers. Yep, in the reality of 1610, Plant Man is instead a mutant. His powers are similar to that of Poison Ivy, allowing him to control plant life. Blackheath was one of the mutants who was kept in William Stryker's camps. While there, he ended up meeting and befriending Storm, and would be one of the few mutants left when Utopia came about. Number 9. Mach 2. Mach 2 is Nomi Bloom. She is kind of like the second coming of Magneto, but not as much of a villain. Or at least, she comes around in the end. And not inherently as powerful as Magneto was. She can basically affect and control magnetic fields. Later on, she would see a power boost which would enable her to have more control over objects containing metal. Mach 2 is also known for being a rival to Kitty in terms of her leadership over the surviving mutants of Utopia. People are going to be like, what is Utopia? And I'm going to be like, don't worry. We're getting to that much later, but it's coming. It's slowly you'll get little bits of information. Number 8. Zorn. In the reality of Earth 1610, Zorn is actually Zorn, but is not the only version of Zorn. Wow, that sounded confusing. What I mean to say is that Zorn is his own person, Kuan Yin, but has a sibling who is also named Zorn, but with a Z. They were each given their powers as part of the Southeast Asian Republic's Super Soldier program. Zorn with an X is the one who you typically see clad in the color white. He is an amazingly powerful telepath and telekinetic. While both characters may have been introduced later and have been somewhat short-lived, they are both presented as being pretty powerful during their time in the comics. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 7. Zorn. This is the sibling I was telling you about. Zorn with a Z or a Z is Shen Yin, the brother of Zorn with an X. His powers are much darker in nature. It's actually believed in the comics that Zorn and Zorn were sort of destined to bring a sense of balance to the world and mutant kind, symbolically sort of representing yin and yang, black and white. Zorn's powers are basically akin to a black hole. He emits a black hole energy and can use his powers to manipulate gravity. In the end, Zorn sacrifices himself when he realizes that he cannot win in the war against the children of tomorrow. In his death, he effectively becomes a black hole in retaliation. Number 6. Colossus. A strong mutant on Earth 616 and in 1610. Initially, Pyotr Rasputin did not possess super strength as part of his power set, but was given a drug called Banshee to enhance his strength, as well as a job working for the Russian mafia. Eventually, he ended up joining the X-Men, though he would leave the team on a few separate occasions. He'd managed to hold off Scarlet Witch, save a submarine that not even the Ultimates were capable of saving, and defeat Proteus, David Xavier, Xavier's son, who threatened the entire world with violence, traveling around and targeting international landmarks the world over. Differences between Colossus of Earth 1610 and that of Earth 616 is that here he isn't inherently strong, as I said before, in his steel form, but needs Banshee to give him that boost. And he's also gay. He even for a time dates fellow mutant Northstar. Number 5. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy Hudson is the son of Wolverine. He also inherited his claws, superior senses, and regenerative healing factor. Like his dad, it's believed that his powers may actually be based in survival as opposed to just healing, with James being seen as adapting to survive injury or harsh environments as needed. Unlike Wolverine, Jimmy can choose to coat his claws in metal, as this is actually part of his power set, and it's believed that only his claws end up being coated, not the rest of his skeleton. Jimmy was a crucial member of the mutant resistance, which fought against Sentinel and militia attacks that threatened to wipe out the mutants. In the end, the mutants were victorious and were given a choice of going to live on their own piece of land in Utah or taking a cure for their mutation. Jimmy was one of the few mutants who decided to keep his powers. Number 4. Storm. Initially in the Ultimate Universe, Storm didn't have great control over her powers, and mostly got by stealing cars, powers, but after the X-Men took her in, she learned how to control and even master her powers, allowing her to become one of the most fearsome and powerful mutants around. Ultimate Storm is so cool. Storm is so fast, she has been shown to be able to catch people who are falling in midair, dodge bullets, and even keep pace with a plane. Impressive considering planes on average travel at speeds over 540 miles per hour or over 870 kilometers per hour. That's fast. She's also likely not someone you want to tangle with, as even when she takes hits in battles, she tends to keep fighting or instinctively strike back. Using her lightning storm and weather control powers, she's also managed to defeat multiple opponents with one single attack, whether they be Sentinel opponents or human opponents, and in some cases, even killing them. I think at one point she kills like 11 people at once, and it's just like, okay. Don't mess with Storm. Got it. I mean, I already knew that before from her 616, but now I really know. Number 3, Jean Grey. In Ultimates, it almost seems there is nothing Jean can't do. Before she joined the X-Men, she was in a mental institution as the manifestation of her powers made her seem insane. However, Professor X would save Jean and recruit her on his X-Men team, with her being the second member. In the Ultimate Universe, we have seen Jean become possessed by what she thought was a cosmic entity referred to as the Phoenix God, and almost lose control and her sanity. The biggest problem with Jean is similar to that of her Earth 616 counterpart. Immense power threatens to basically break her mind, or at least take over her sense of sanity. In the comics, Jean is not only a skilled telepath and was even able to read Wolverine's mind, something Professor X believed wasn't even possible, but she also happens to, weirdly enough, be a skilled doctor and surgeon as well, although I'm pretty sure she doesn't have any medical license. Say what? Jean was even shown to be capable of connecting and tapping into the multiverse to reach out and see various versions of herself. Basically, she can do everything, because being a telepath is crazy powerful. Number 2, Magneto. Obviously, one of the most powerful mutants out there has to be Magneto, not just for the powers of magnetism that he wields, but also just for his influence. Magneto was the mastermind behind Ultimatum. I suppose I should use the term mastermind lightly there, as Ultimatum in general is not really seen very favorably in most fans' eyes. I admit it was controversial and caused a lot of perhaps needless death. In fact, I would say it was needless death. But you have to acknowledge just how much of a threat it painted Magneto out to be. While I'm not sure about Magneto basically committing genocide as a victim of one himself, you have to admit that this made him one of the most fearsome characters in all of the Ultimate Universe. And for Magneto, there is power in fear, even though oddly enough, it is usually fear that tends to power the hate that he often stands up against. Number 1, Kitty Pryde. One of the most powerful characters as a leader especially. She ends up becoming the ruler of the mutant tent nation that the mutants dub Utopia. This is a portion of land in Utah that the mutants who choose not to accept the cure are given. In fact, all those who refuse to take the cure are forced to live there. Kitty ends up fighting a war against Jean Grey in the Ultimate Universe as well, because Jean wants Kitty to join the mutant nation that she was put in charge of ruling after the death of Zorn with an X, Xian. But Kitty refuses to bring their people together. Kitty is such a good leader, she even steps down from her title as the leader of Utopia to help ease the target on her own people's backs because of her and Jean's conflict. Kitty and Utopia would end up winning that war, and Kitty would also play a crucial role in defeating Galactus as well. Also, I gotta say, that whole World War X thing, it was pretty weird. It was pretty weird, friends.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Genie. We'll start with one that seems to cause some continuity clashes, but it's plenty entertaining anyway. Throughout the 2099 universe, we meet descendants and followers of heroes that made Marvel so famous. Great-grandchildren of classic heroes are all about, and oftentimes the original supers have died, disappeared, or become decrepit to fight crime. New folks come around to replace the old folks. It's the way of the world. However, in many Marvel stories, Doctor Strange manages to outlive all sorts of folks thanks to his magical abilities. This is not the case in 2099 though, as he's nowhere to be found. In his place is another person who goes by the name Strange, and this time it's a woman. Also known as Genie, or possibly Sorceress Supreme, this magical mistress realized she had magical abilities and worked to perfect them on her own. Idolizing her older brother, she followed him one day and witnessed him being attacked by Skrulls. Attempting to scare them away, she tried to conjure an illusion of a Lovecraftian monster and ended up actually summoning an eldritch monstrosity. This didn't end up well for anyone, as she ended up accidentally killing her brother. Whoops. From there on, she underwent more training and started helping other heroes in various capacities. With all sorts of powers fueled by the mystic arts, she can do a whole lot of wicked things. From healing injuries to teleportation to casting sleep spells, she's got it all under control. Plus, she is immune to timeline distortions, which proves to be helpful quite often. So don't mess with Mademoiselle Strange. Coming in at number 9, Deadpool. Wade Wilson who? Well, actually it seems that Wade is indeed still around, but in 2099 his daughter Warda has taken up the mantle, and she seems to enjoy torturing him, which is interesting. Add in a mother who was once queen of the undead and you've got one hell of a mix of powers. She has Wade's regenerative powers as well as some possible vampirism from her mother's side. Absolutely wild. To make her potentially even more effective, she doesn't seem to share her father's sense of humor. Less goofing around, less cracking wise, and more violence. The weapon proficiency is still there too. Nice. Warda spends most of her time attempting to figure out where her mother is and eventually finds her true family, so good for her. Coming in at number 8, Moon Knight. Let's go, Moon Knight. In 2099, they're actually on the moon, and she's no longer Mark Spector, but an unknown individual with a totally secret identity. How cool is that? Wielding a bevy of powerful gadgets and weapons, Moon Knight acts as the server of vigilante justice on the moon-based city of Adelan. Stalking the night, or whatever version of night is on the moon, she keeps the many Inhumans who call that place home as safe as she can. After accidentally wandering into the forbidden citadel of the Watcher, she convinces Uatu to let the Fantastic Four constructs to stick around longer until they've lived up to their former lives. Good on you, Moon Knight. Coming in at number 7, we've got Ghost Rider. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed that Nick Cage isn't the Ghost Rider in 2099. This implies that Hollywood's most controversial leading man doesn't make it until then, and that's just a shame. Thankfully, Ghost Rider is still wicked cool in the future and comes packing some new weapons and powers. Gone are the days that Ghost Rider is a literal magical skeleton flying around on his flaming motorcycle. In 2099, Vengeance got an update. Kenshiro Zero Cochran, computer hacker extraordinaire, ends up with his mind inside of an insanely powerful robot body. A Cybertech 101 warbot to be exact. And this robot is jam-packed with all sorts of futuristic weaponry, from eye lasers, to a hand that can transform into a whole bunch of weapons, to a retractable chainsaw embedded in his arm. Oh, and also a 50 caliber gun and grenades. Still a weapon for vengeance though, Ghost Rider manages to project the image of a flaming skull, just like the OG, using his holographic capabilities. Now that's how you future-proof your superhero. Coming in at number 6, Hulk. Our futuristic gamma-fueled beast is definitely a contender for strongest ever. However, unlike the original Hulk, he's not quite immortal. I won't get into the nitty-gritty here, but even a base power higher than the first Green Giant isn't enough to keep you alive against all odds. Too bad too, because this is a really cool reimagining of a classic hero. In 2099, a movie producer named John Eisenhart decides he wants to do a movie about the Knights of Banner. This group worships Bruce Banner like a god and tends to move around all over the place. When Eisenhart finds out he can't get the rights to their story, he turns them into the police, but feels guilty afterwards. He tries to find a way to help them out, but gets caught in the blast of a gamma bomb, turning him into a brand new green monstrosity. He's got more base strength than the original Hulk, sharp teeth and claws useful for ripping and tearing, and even holds onto his human intelligence once transformed. Able to lift up to 150 tons and leap hundreds of feet in a single bound, this version of the Hulk is a force to be reckoned with. Coming in at number 5, we've got Thor. This might come as a bit of a surprise, but in the future, a lot of people worship superheroes, and a lot of the time, those who revere these supernatural figures are interested in attaining these godly powers for themselves. In 2099, a subset of people have decided to give themselves to Thor, mind, body, and spirit. Known as members of the Church of Thor, or Thorites, they all have the hallmarks of many other major religions, down to the places of worship and religious leaders. Cecil McAdams was a reverend of the Church of Thor, and was actually chosen to take up the mantle of the Norse god of thunder himself. Through technological advances and a whole lot of self-deception, McAdams ended up with almost identical powers to the god that he worshipped. This resulted in some less than stellar mental issues though, as he went a little power crazy and tried to rid an entire city of mortals. Coming to number 4, we've got Exodus. Born as Bennett du Paris back in the 1300s, this mutant is all about changing up the world order. He has and always will believe that mutants should be in charge of the world, with humans as the inferior race. This was true before 2099 and remains true in said futuristic world. Showing up after a long sleep, Exodus attempted to force his rule upon X Nation. They weren't too happy with this, so Exodus defeated them. Using telepathy, teleportation, and resurrection, he's almost undefeatable. Factor in that he refused to save the humans before Mademoiselle Strange teleported the survivors away, and you've got one bad, powerful dude. Coming in at number 3, we've got Punisher. Even way off at the turn of the next century, Punisher's gotta punish. Frank Castle no longer wears the gigantic skull, instead it's a guy by the name of Jake Gallows, which is appropriate. This ex-Thorite actually grew up with Cecil McAdams as his reverend, but we'll save that story for a rainy day. He lost his family to violence and then came across the old war journals of the original Punisher. With this, he decided he would dedicate his life to punishing. At first, he was a member of the pay-per-use police service, but eventually ended up as Doom's Minister of Punishment. As one would expect, this makes it very dangerous to be deemed a criminal in the future. Strapping, angry, and constantly firing guns in both hands, the Punisher does what he does best. Hell, he even has a hand in killing the new Thor. Coming in at number 2, we've got Spider-Man. If you want a crazy origin story, look no further. In the future, there's one company that seems to have an upper hand over the rest: Alchemax. Miguel O'Hara was a scientist working for them, reluctantly performing genetic experiments on less than willing test subjects. After turning a man into a horrid beast that died quickly, O'Hara decided he'd had enough. However, when discussing this with his boss, he accepted a drink that turned out to be laced with Rapture, a highly addictive substance that bonds with the DNA of the person using it. This was supposed to keep O'Hara addicted, and therefore an employee of the company that produced it for the foreseeable future. In order to reverse this addiction, though, O'Hara attempted to rewrite his own genetic code. This procedure was sabotaged by his boss, but ended up including some spider DNA in the process. Thus, Spider-Man 2099 was born. Jam-packed with spider powers, but actually lacking any form of spider sense, O'Hara decided to start fighting crime. Donning a spider suit to hide his identity, he puts his powers to use. Increased strength, agility, stamina, regeneration, some telepathy, claws and fangs, and even spinnerets that generate organic web, and more. Spider-Man is always a fan favorite, that's for sure. Finally, at number 1, we've got Dr. Doom. Unlike most of the other heroes on this list, Doom isn't a clone or a copy or even offspring of another individual, it's still Doom. After disappearing for decades, Dr. Doom decided to upgrade his armor and make a triumphant return, and triumphantly return he does. Coming back in full force, he manages to retake the United States and force his way into a leadership role. Like I said earlier, he employs Jake Gallows as his Minister of Punishment and begins ruling with an iron fist. There really is no stopping Doom, even in the future.